I think the key to implementing guided reading into your classroom effectively is really planning. There are quite a lot of things you need to do before you can actually start it in your classroom. First thing you need to plan, or at least make time for in your teaching schedule, is that you assess the learner's strengths and weaknesses, or I'd rather say identify their strengths and say, okay, this is what we still need to work on because they're not there yet. So you need to start looking which learners have got similar level of reading skills and strategies available, and what do they need to develop, so you can group them together at a similar level. Then as well, when you group them together, see if you can keep your groups, I would say size-wise, between 4 to about 6 students. The weaker your students, the smaller sometimes that group needs to be, because you need to scaffold a lot more during guided reading. If they're stronger readers, I would say even 7 if that fits in your class and you have no other options. That's not a big deal. So you need to assess your learners, group your learners, and then of course as well, you need to think about what are you doing with those learners who are not sitting with you at the guided reading desk. For example, you've got 27 students in your class. I might have 6 students joining me for a guided reading session. What are the other 21 students doing in this case? So a very important thing for you to plan is that those learners have something to do that's meaningful. And I often give them independent literacy work. I don't know if you've heard of the Daily 5. They could do some word work, read it to themselves, reading to others. There could be some follow-up writing. You need to select tasks that are appropriate to their level, developmental level, and also meaningful. So often I get a writing or a word task that relates maybe to other topics that you do in school, like science or maths, and they're working with vocabulary, or tasks that relate back to the readers they might have finished last week. So make sure that they have something to do. And then, of course, for your guided reading session, you need to plan the usual pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading. So you need to think about how you get your learners engaged, introducing the booklet, pre-teaching vocabulary, which is a very important thing when you speak about second language learners, because they might not have heard those words before. And if they're key for the story, your learners need to know those words. You want to think as well about what reading strategy do I need to develop? And the reader I've selected, does that actually offer the opportunity to develop this reading strategy? So what's your reading focus? Does it match with the text? That's another thing, of course, you need to do. You need to select the reader you're going to use of the right level. I would say not too easy, because then they get bored. Not too hard, because if it's too hard, learners don't have any brain space left to start making meaning. They're still working out words. They're thinking about vocabulary. There's no space left. Cognitive overload. And a very important point when you do your planning is think about creating opportunities for your students in their small groups to think about the text. What questions do you want to ask at different levels, not only factual, but maybe questions to evaluate what they've read, to inferencing, and also give them opportunities to talk together about answers, about the text, because oral literacy is really supporting reading and writing. With that, when you work with guided reading, you need to think about the location in your classroom, so stations. Make sure you're away a little bit from all the other students, but that you still can keep an eye on what's happening in your class. And of course, continuous assessment in your groups. Some learners move on quicker than others, so make sure if somebody's ready to go to the next level, that you don't keep them in your group. Move them on to the next group, so that flexible grouping. So all in all, quite a lot of planning and thinking before you can start guided reading in your classroom.